Welcome to a tutorial from Partners in Crime. In this tutorial, we're going to be making this awesome intro in Blender 3D. So, if you don't know what Blender 3D is, it's free and open source software, which means it's free to download, free to use, and whatever you're making it is yours. So you want to have that downloaded and installed, open it up, and then start making your intro. Now the first step in making this intro is changing the render engine from Blender Render to Cycles Render. So, at the top of the screen here, click Blender Render and click Cycles Render. Now we want to delete the default cube, so press X on your keyboard and click Delete. Next, press numpad 1 on your keyboard and then press Ctrl Alt numpad 0 to bring the camera into front view. And now we're going to add some text. So go into the top left of the screen here, click the Create tab, scroll down and click Text. Rotate the text so that it's facing our camera by pressing R and then X and then 90 on your keyboard and pressing Enter to confirm the rotation. And now we're going to go into text edit mode by pressing Tab on your keyboard, and you want to erase the text and type your own custom text. So press Tab to exit text edit mode. Now we're going to go into the right of the screen here in the text object data tab. Scroll down and under paragraph and the line, click center so that our text is in the center of the screen. Now we're just going to pull our text down on the z-axis by left clicking on this blue arrow here, holding and pulling our cursor down. Release the left click. Alright, and now we're going to open a font that we have stored on our computer. And the font we'll be using is called AudioWide. So we'll include a download link for that in the description. So just show Blender where that font is on your computer. Click this folder here. Go to wherever your font is. And double click on AudioWide. Alright, so now we're going to size this text object up by typing S on our keyboard and moving our cursor out. Left click to confirm the sizing. And now left click on this blue arrow here. Once more, we're just going to pull our text a bit further down on the z-axis. Release that left click. Now we're going to give our text some 3D depth. So scroll up to zoom in here. Use the middle mouse button to pan around. We're going to make our text extrude a bit. So go into the right of the screen here. Pull this extrusion value up. We'll put the extrusion value for this at 0.192. Scroll up. I'm going to give our text a bit of a bevel. So go into the bevel section here and pull the bevel depth value up. We'll put 0.009. Alright, and we're going to put the resolution up so that we get more of a smooth bevel here. So just bump that resolution up, and we'll go with 25 for the resolution. Scroll down to zoom out here and use the mouse button to pan around. Okay, so our 3D text object is looking pretty good. So press numpad 0 to go back into camera view. Scroll down to zoom out here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to append a material for our text. Now we're going to append the material from a materials pack from BlendSwap that will include a download link for in the description. So you just want to go to the top left of the screen here, click File, and click Append. And then you want to show Blender where that downloaded blend file is on your computer. So for us, it's Cycles Materials. We'll use the Car Paint Materials pack. Click the Materials section here. Left click and hold and pull that box over green and gray. So you select both green and gray. And click Append from Library to append those materials. Alright, so now right click on your text object now that we've got our materials in this blend file. Go into the materials section to the right of the screen here. Click the materials tab. Click this material icon here and click gray. So now we've got a nice gray text object, and we're going to make sort of some green rims to go around our text. So we're just going to duplicate this text object by pressing Shift D on our keyboard. Right click to cancel the movement, and click the materials icon here and change it to green. So we've got a green text object now. Go into the text object data tab. And we're going to edit the geometry on this to make it a bit different than our gray text. So first we are going to change the extrusion value. We're going to pull that down. Go with 0.165. And for the bevel dot value, we're going to increase that. We'll go with 0.048. And we'll go with 0.041. Alright, using my mouse button to pan around here. Let's go out to zoom in. And we're going to bump down the resolution to 10 so that our bevel is not too smooth for our outline. Alright, and now we're going to reduce the bulginess of our text here. Put the offset to -0.009. Now we're just going to pull this green text object back on the y-axis. So left click on this green arrow here. Hold that and pull it back so that's just behind our gray text object. Okay, so now we've got our gray text with our green rims. We're just going to make a sort of metallic backing for this. So Shift D to duplicate our green text object. Right click to cancel the movement. We're just going to append another material. This time it will be a metallic material. And we'll include a download link to it in the description. So click File, Append, Exhibition Final, click Material, and just double click on Aluminum. So right click on one of your green text objects, go into the Material section, click this material icon here and change it to Aluminum. Now we're going to go back into the Text Object Data tab, and we're going to edit the geometry of our aluminum backing a bit. So we'll just bump the bevel depth value up to 0.048, and we'll keep the resolution as it is, but we'll put that offset back up to 0. And now we're just going to pull our text back on the y-axis. So left click on this green arrow here, hold and pull our text back like so, using my mouse button to pan around here. And now we're going to press numpad 0 to go back in the camera view, scroll down to zoom out, and we're going to just make some lighting for our text so that it shows up properly in our render. So we're going to use a few planes as lamps for our scene. So go into the left of the screen here, scroll up, and under Add Primitive and Mesh, click Plane. Okay, so we're going to size this plane up by pressing S on our keyboard and moving out our cursor. Left click to confirm that sizing. Now we're just going to go into the Object Data tab for this. I'm going to bump the X scale up, so just drag this out so you can see. And we'll put the X scale up to 51. And the Y and Z scales to, let's go with 19. Right? And rotate this on the X axis by typing R and then X on your keyboard and moving your cursor down. Right? Left click to confirm that. Scroll down to zoom out and use the middle mouse button to pan around here. So just type G on your keyboard and move your cursor up behind that camera there. Left click to confirm that. I'm just going to rotate our plane a bit more because we want it to shine light on our text more. Want it to get a bit more of an angle. So type R and then X on your keyboard and move your cursor. Right? Left click to confirm the rotation. Use the mouse button to pan around here. And we're going to press Shift D to duplicate this. Let's move it down below our text here. Left click to confirm that movement. And for the location of this, we're going to put the Y location at 6. We'll put the Z location, as is. So now we're going to go into the materials section and add a new material for this. And we're going to make it emit, so click diffuse and click emission. And we'll change the strength to 2. And we're going to click this here and rename our material lamp material. Okay, so right click on this other lamp here, click material icon, and make sure that it has our lamp material. And now we're going to press numpad 0 to go into camera view and go into the viewport shading section here and click rendered to see how our text will look once it's rendered. Okay, so you can see we've got some nice looking 3D text here with some green rims and our metal backing. So press numpad 0 to go back into camera view. We're just going to go back into solid view, make our computer go a bit faster. Go into the render settings tab. What we're going to do now is just going to make our background for our render transparent so we can add in the background in the compositor. So scroll down under film, check transparent, and we're going to adjust the number of samples for our render. So click the sampling section, and under samples, bump the number of samples up to 100. And we'll put the clamp indirect value to 15 and the clamp direct value to 0.98. Alright, so I think we've got our scene ready for our render. So let's go to the top left of the screen here, click render, and click render image. Let's just wait for this to render. Cycles can take a bit. Alright, so now that our text object is finished rendering, we're going to jump into the compositor. So go into the top of the screen here, click this here, and click Compositing. Check Use Nodes and check Backdrop. And we're going to add a viewer node, so click Add Output Viewer. That up there. Scroll down to zoom out. And just left click and drag this render layers node here. Left click and drag the composite node, just to organize these nodes a bit. And now we're going to add in our image background. So click Add Input Image, and we'll include a download link for this in the description. We'll be using GText Green. Open. Just double click on that. And now we're going to add our image to our scene within Alpha Over node. So click Add Color Alpha Over. Hook it up after our render layers node, and hook the output of this image node to the input of the Alpha Over node here, and hook the output of the Alpha Over node to the input of the viewer node. Now you can see our image in the background with our text. So now we're just going to click Add, Distort, Scale, so that we can scale our image to our scene. So hover that over this node string here until it highlights. Then left click and change the scaling type from relative to render size. And now we've scaled our background image to our render size. So now that we've got our text object here and our background, we're going to add in our stars. So we're going to go back into default view, go back into 3D view, and we're going to add a new scene. So click this plus up here and click new once that dialog pops up, and we'll name this scene Star Scene, right? And before we do anything with this scene, we're going to link the camera from our first scene to this scene. So click this here and click our original scene. Right click on our camera, press Ctrl L, and once the Make Links dialog pops up, hover your cursor over Objects Scene, and then left click Star Scene. Alright, so now jump into your star scene. Now that we've got our camera here, we can start making our stars. So in the left of the screen here, under Add Primitive and Mesh, click UV Sphere. I'm just going to size the sphere up by typing S on our keyboard and moving our cursor up. We'll left click to confirm that sizing. We're going to add a new material for our sphere here. So go into the Materials section, click New, And we're going to make the material a halo material. I'm going to put the size of this at 0.4, 0.04 will do, so that our stars aren't too big. And now we're going to displace our stars a bit over our scene. So go into the modifier section, click add modifier, and click displace. And click new to add a new texture for this to displace to. And go into the texture section. Change the texture type from image or movie to stitchy. And make the turbulence 8. Now we're going to go into the modifier section here. We're going to make the strength of the displacement 4.1. Right? Let's go to zoom that in. Use numpad 0. Back in there and type S and move your cursor out to scale this out. Left click to confirm that scaling. And now we've got our stars. We're just going to make the background of this transparent for our render. So go into the render settings. Click shading. And click sky here. And click transparent. Right? So now we can render our stars. So click render, render image. And now you can see our stars there. So just go into the compositor now. We're going to add our stars. So click add color mix. Look it up after the alpha over node here. With the output of this mix node to the input of the composite node. And click this here and change it to add. Now we're going to left click on this render layers node here. Press Shift D to duplicate it. It's that there. And hook the output of this render layers node to the input of the add node here. Now we are going to change this to our star scene. So click this here and click star scene. Alright, so now you can see our stars there. Use my mouse button to pan around the compositor here. So now that we have our text object and our stars in our background, we're going to add that little flare that goes at the bottom of the screen here and syncs with the audio. Alright, so just move these nodes around here and get ready to add our flare. Left click on this image node here, hold down Shift and left click on the scaling node. Press Shift D to duplicate these nodes. Move them down here. And now we're going to left click on this add node. Press Shift D to duplicate it. Go up after here. And hook the output of this add node to the input of the composite node. Hook the output of this image node, the scaling node, to the input of the add node. We're going to scroll up to zoom in, using the mouse button to pan around. We're going to open that flare image. So click this folder here and double click Audio React Flare Image. Alright, so now we've got our flare at the bottom here, our stars in the background, and our text object. You can use your middle mouse button to pan around here. And now we're going to add those rays that are going to sync to the audio around our text. So click add filter sunbeams. Put up there. Scroll up to zoom in. And we're going to, let's left click on this add node here, press Shift D to duplicate it. Put that up there. And hook the image output of our render layers node to the sunbeams node, and hook the output of this sunbeams node to the input of this add node here. Just gonna add a little bit of a glow for our sunbeams. Put that ray length up so we can see those beams. So put that up to 0.3. Alright, so you can see those rays of light. Now click add filter glare. Hook it up after our sunbeams node. Change the glare type from streaks to fog glow. Change the quality from medium to high. We're going to pull the threshold to 0.08. So now we get to see that glare a bit more. There we go. Alright, so now we're just going to edit the brightness of of the glow on these rays. So click Add Color RGB Curves. Look it up after our glare node here. We'll move this brightness up. Okay. Move on around a bit. Scroll down and zoom out. Use the mouse button to pan around. And now our rays are looking pretty good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start adding in our song and animating some things. So go into default view. Go into our original scene. And go into the video sequence editor. Click Add Sound. Now we're just going to use Rogue Adventure Time. Include a download link for this edited version in the description. So double click on that. Right, so we now got that in our blend. Press in. I'm going to reduce the volume of this to 0.1. Right, so now we're just going to jump into 3D view and we're going to click play to see how this goes. So now we've got our song properly loaded into our blend file. What we're going to do now is start animating our camera. So let's jump back to frame 1. Alright, and go into the Object Data tab. I'm going to manually enter some coordinates for our camera so that we can make the camera movement as similar to the intro that you saw before the beginning of this tutorial. We're going to make it as similar to that as possible. So I'm going to enter the location coordinates and the rotation coordinates for the camera. So negative 1.5, negative 14 is good there, and negative 4 for the Z. And we rotated it so that it's looking sort of upwards at our text there. So X rotation 108, as you can see there, and Z rotation negative 5.6. Right? So insert a keyframe for that. Type on your keyboard and click location rotation. And now we're going to jump to frame 63. And let's see what happens at frame 63. Play that. Right? 63 is the frame where that whoosh just supposed to start before the beat goes. So back to frame 63. And we're going to make the camera location negative 3.6. Negative 11 on the Y. Negative 12. So that pulls back a bit more. And for the Z, we'll stick with negative 4. Yep. And put that down to negative 6. And for the X rotation, let's go with 116. Take that more upwards at the text. And for the Z rotation, let's put that at negative 16. Alright, that's looking good. So type I on your keyboard and click location rotation. Then click play. And let's see where the next keyframe we're going to add is going to be. Okay, so when that beat stops, it's about frame 74. So we're going to change the X location on frame 74. Put that at 2.6. And we'll put the Y location at negative 10. Z location at negative 5. And we'll put the Z rotation at 14. And the X rotation at 117. Alright, so we have our camera just changing directions, frame 74. So type on your keyboard and click location rotation to insert a keyframe for that. And let's see what the next frame we'll put a keyframe on is, so click play. And before we insert any more keyframes, I'm going to make sure the audio syncs correctly with the video, so click no sync here. and click AV sync. Right, so let's pull that back. Alright, and our next keyframe will be for frame 83. So jump to frame 83 and put the X location at -3, so we just get our camera changing direction again. So -3, -12 for the Y, and -6 for the Z. And let's make the rotation, the X, let's put that back to 116. And for the Z rotation, -16. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So press I and insert keyframe for location rotation. So let's pull this back and see how this looks. So we have that camera changing direction, and then we're gonna make it pull back. So let's jump to a further frame. Let's say we'll go with frame 162, and we'll make the X location -0.1, Y location -17, the Z location 0.1. We'll go with 0.2 maybe. Let's see how 0.2 does. And for the X rotation, put that back at 90. And for the Z location, we'll just put that to 0. Alright? So let's put that at negative. Let's put the Z location at, we'll put it at 0.17. Alright, so that will pull that down a bit. So press I and click location rotation to insert that keyframe. We're going to make the end frame of this 165 so that we don't get any extra frames in there. So now we're going to click play to see how our camera animates. Alright, so that's looking pretty nice. What we want now is when our text to just sort of be rotated upwards and then just flip in the center of the screen. So let's jump to a frame, like frame 60 something, when that whoosh is still going, like the one that starts at frame 63. So let's jump to frame 67. Right click on the text object, press B, left click and drag to box select over these text objects, and type R on your keyboard twice, and rotate the text up, so that's sort of kind of looking up. Alright, so just get the right rotation in here. Okay, X43. Just want to get the right rotation in this. Let's go with this rotation. Left click to confirm that. And we'll rotate it on Z, so type RZ. Move that around a bit. Left click to confirm that. And RX. Move that down a bit. Or up. Move it up. And left click to confirm that. And rotate on the Y, RY. And go with this. Left click and press I to insert a keyframe for the location rotation. Click location rotation. And now we'll jump to frame 71. And we'll insert the keyframe for the text for this frame. So type R and then R. I'm just going to rotate our text so that it's more towards the camera. Frame 71. So RR. RX. Left click from that. RZ. Alright, now we'll type RZ -0.5. 0.296 so that we get that Z rotation, that Z rotation at 0. And we'll do RY negative 24.92. Enter. And we'll do RX negative 0.418 so that we get the X rotation at 90, the Y rotation at 0, and the Z rotation at 0 in the right of the screen. You can see there. Left click to confirm that rotation, and now type I on your keyboard and click location rotation to insert the keyframe for the location rotation for the text. And now we're going to jump to another later frame. See how this looks. And we're going to look at another frame. We'll go to frame 162. I'm going to make the text rotate upwards a bit. So type R, then X on your keyboard. We'll do 64 for the X rotation. We'll do R twice and just move the cursor around. Alright. Left click to confirm that rotation. I location rotation. So now we've inserted a keyframe for that text object to be rotated up like that. We're going to see how this animates. So jump back to frame 0 and click play. So this is looking pretty nice already so far. Now what we want to do is when this text slams, we want to make it get a little bit wiggly. So we're going to add in that wavy effect in the compositor. So let's just jump into the compositor now. Go to compositing. Use middle mouse button to pan around here. Scroll up and zoom in, and you can see our text render layers node here. What we're going to do now is add in a displacement node. So click Add, Distort, Displace. Get up after our render layers node here, and hook the output of this displace node to the input of this add node. Put it to the bottom input, the top input. Let's see. Alright. And we'll make sure this is hooked up properly here. Hold down to zoom out, use the mouse button to pan around here. Alright, and now we're going to displace our image. So click Add Input Texture. Put it up there. Scroll down to zoom out and hook the color output of the texture node to the vector input of the displace node. Now we're going to go to the right of the screen here. Click the texture section. Add a new texture. I'll change the texture type to Stutchy and increase the turbulence to 8. And now we're going to have to decide how much our scene is affected by our texture. So what we're going to do here is insert some keyframes for this. First I'll put the X scale at 50 and the Y scale at -80 so you can see the kind of wiggly displacement we're making. And you want to make sure you've got your texture in the compositor, so click this here and click texture 001 since that's the texture we just created. Alright, so you can see our text getting a little bit wiggly here. So I'm just going to scroll down to zoom out here, and I'm going to jump to frame 71. So that's around the frame when a lot of stuff's happening. Yeah, we'll go with frame 71. And hover your cursor over the displace node, over the X and Y scaling values, and type I on your keyboard to insert keyframes for both. And now we're going to jump to frame 63. make sure our wiggly effect doesn't start too soon. So we'll pull this X and Y scale down to 0 for frame 63. Hover your cursor over that and press I. And jump to frame 78. We'll pull the X and Y scaling values to 0 on frame 78 also, because our wiggly effect is going to have to stop a certain frame. So hover your cursor over the X and Y scaling values and type I. And we're also going to have to animate our texture so that our text object or text scene kind of waves more properly. So jump to frame 0 and we'll just pull the size all the way down to 0.0001. Hover your cursor over that and press I to enter the keyframe for that. And jump to frame, let's see, frame 150. And put the size up to 0.4. Right, have your cursor over that and press I. So now we've got our wiggly text effect. Let's go up to zoom in here. Scroll down to zoom out. So now that we've got our rays of light and our wiggly text and our light over here, we're going to add in our shockwave. Alright, so let's see how we're going to organize our node setup using my mouse button to pan around here. Going to figure out where we're going to put in our shockwave in this node setup. I think I'm going to add it to our background. So what I'm going to do here is, let's see, press Shift D to duplicate this alpha over node here. Put it after our add node here. I think, let's see, yeah, put it after this add node here. And we're going to put our text scene into this alpha over node here. So we've got our text over our stars and our background. So move the render layers node around here. And we're also going to need to left click on this alpha over node and press X to delete it. And press Shift, left click on this add node here, press Shift D to duplicate it. Hook the output of this add node to the input of this add node. And hook the scaling output to the input of this add node here. And now we're going to add in our shockwave. So we're going to left click on this image node here, hold down Shift and left click on the scaling node, press Shift D to duplicate these, and hook this output of the scaling node to the input of this add node here. Alright, and we're going to scroll up to zoom in using my mouse button to pan around here. And now we're just going to add in our shockwave. So I'll click this folder here. And I'll include a download link for Shockwave in the description. Here's our Shockwaves folder. And double click on the Shockwave we want for this tutorial. We'll be using Shockwave 17. Double click on that. And we know the number of frames, it's 109 frames. And our Shockwave, we don't want it to start until around frame 69. So put that start frame at frame 69. Scroll down to zoom out. Use your mouse button to pan around here. So now we've got our wiggly text, our shockwave, and our text rays. We're going to refine our scene a bit. So for the shockwave, we're going to add in a little blurry shockwave behind our original shockwave here. So move the scaling node around and click Add Color Mix. Hook it up after the image node and change it from Mix to Add. Right, and hook the output of this image node to the input of this Add node. Scroll down to zoom out and using my mouse button to pan around here. Now we're gonna click Add Filter Glare. Hook it up after our shockwaves node here. Hook it up. Okay, so we're just going to change the glare type from streaks to fog glow, and we'll put the quality at high. And we'll pull the threshold down to 0. And we'll hook the output of this image node to the input of the glare node. and we'll hook the output of this glare node to put the add node here, and we're going to make a sort of blurry kind of glare go behind our shockwave. So click add filter, blur, hook it up after our fog glow node, like so, and change the blur type from Gaussian to fast Gaussian. And let's make the blur 30 on the X and Y values. Scroll down to zoom out here. Zoom the mouse button to pan around here and wait for this to finish. And we're going to put the scaling node behind everything, or let's leave the scaling node where it is for now. And you can see we've got kind of a blurry glow with our shockwave. And now we're going to make our scene a little bit more bluish. So move these nodes around here. I'm going to change the color of our background image a bit. So click add color hue saturation value to add a hue saturation value node. Look it up after our scaling node here. I'm going to put the hue 0.8. We're also going to blur up our background image a bit. So scroll down, zoom out, use your mouse button to pan around here. Left click on this blur node here, press Shift D to duplicate it. Hook it up after our scaling node here, and we'll change the blur to about 100 on the X and Y values. And now that we got that done, we're also going to increase the value of our background and the brightness. So just drag that up to 2. Scroll down to zoom out. You can see we're already getting more bluish color in our background. Just going to make it a little bit pop out more, as you can see. And now I use your mouse button to pan around here. Let's see. So now we've got our shockwave in here. We've got our rays of light, background, our stars. We're going to make these rays of light pop out a bit more. So what we're going to do here is move this alpha over node around a bit. And we're going to hook up a fog glow node after this alpha over node to make everything up here just pop out more. So let's find the fog glow node, left click on it, and press Shift D to duplicate it. And hook it up after our alpha over node here. Scroll up to zoom in. And let's add in RGB curves node, add color RGB curves to make our scene a bit more bluish. So hook it up to our glare node there. Pull color down just this bit. Right? So now we're going to go into the red levels and lower these red levels. Scroll down to zoom out. So move my mouse button to pan around here. Alright, so go in the color section. Let's press X on that. Let's leave the color all the same. And let's jump to a later frame and see how this would look. And wait for that to composite. And once that's done compositing, we're going to add in our audio react. So we've got our audio react flare image here. Our rays are looking pretty good, and so is our shockwave. So now we're going to change the color of our flare down here. So just Shift D to duplicate this RGB curves node, pull it down here. I'm going to make this flare here react to the song we've got. Just wait for that to composite. Alright, so you can see our flare down here is a bit more bluish now. What we're going to do now is add a hue saturation value node. So click add color hue saturation value, hook it up after the RGB curves node. And what we're going to do now is jump back to frame 1. Hover your cursor over the value and press I. And now we're going to bake this keyframe to the sound. So jump back into default view, go into default view. And going to pull this side of the screen out here. Go into the graph editor and click this arrow here. Click value and click key. Bake sound to F curves and double click on the song we've used. So double click on that. And now we're going to jump back into the compositor so you can see. The value of that flare, which is the brightness, is going to react to the audio we've got. See, you can see it going up and down. Alright, so now that we've got that keyframe to our audio, we want to start making our rays also react to our audio. But here's the thing, we're going to move this around here, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this hue saturation value node. Look it up after there. Alright, and we'll put that down to 1, just in case we want to change the color of our audio react again. We'll have that extra hue saturation value node there. So now we'll use our middle mouse button, and let's concentrate on our text light rays. So let's take a look at that. Use the mouse button to pan around here. Scroll up to zoom in, and what we're going to do is going to bake some brightness. So we're going to have to add in a hue saturation value node again. So click add color hue saturation value. Look it up after the RGB curves node here. And let's see. Let's jump to a frame where the text slams. And after the text slams, we want our text rays to react to the audio. So let's jump to frame 70. Let's go with frame 74. Alright, so let's see. 74 good? Yep, 74. So hover your cursor over the value for this hue saturation value node and type I to insert a keyframe for that. And I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this hue saturation value node. Hook it up there. And we don't want our rays of light to show up until our text slams. So let's jump to a frame, let's see what frame we'll be jumping to. Let's go with 73. And let's go to frame 84. We'll make the factor for this one 1 on frame 84. So hover your cursor over that and type I on your keyboard. We're going to jump to frame 83. And make the factor 0. Hover your cursor over that and press I. And let's see, now that we've got those keyframes inserted, we want to, left click on this hue saturation value node, and we're going to bake the value to the sound, just like we did with our flare at the bottom. So let's jump to a certain frame, or let's just go back all the way to frame 0, and we'll bake that audio. Go into default view, and click value, and click key, bake sound to add curves, and double click on the song we've used again. Let's jump to compositing, and you can see that the audio react isn't going to be factored in until a certain frame 83. You can make it frame 74 if you want to change the keys around, but I think frame 83 will be good. So let's rename this node. Let's make that audio react. So this is a hue saturation value node with the audio react label. So now we've got that text reacting to our audio. Shockwave coming out nicely. We're going to add in our fade out. So left click and move this around here. Click and move this out here. Use the mouse button to pan around. Click add, color, hue saturation value. Hook it up after our add node. And hook the output of this hue saturation value node to the input of the composite node. And we're going to jump to frame 155. That's going to be the frame that our animation fades out. So pull the value to 0. Have your cursor over that and press I. Let's jump to another frame, like say frame 147. And let's make the value 1. Alright, so our scene will start going down to 0 at frame 147. And it will finish doing that at frame 155. And you'll have the music going for like half or fourth of a second longer, and then your intro is done. So let's see what we got here. Let's do a quick overview. We'll use the middle mouse button to pan around here. Alright, so we have our camera panning in, and then text slamming, camera pulling back and changing direction and zooming out a bit. And once our text slams, it's going to have that wiggly effect that the displace node's going to make. And the rays of text are going to react to the audio. Shockwave is going to come out. And we have to make sure the shockwave doesn't show before frame 69. So let's go add a hue saturation value node. So click add color hue saturation value. Hook it up after our scaling node. Let's go down and zoom out. Use the mouse button to pan around. Alright, so since our shockwave starts on frame 69, we want to jump to frame 68 and make the value 0, because we don't want that shockwave to show up anytime before frame 69. So hover your cursor over that and press I, insert a keyframe for the value to be 0 at frame 68, and jump to frame 69 and just make that value 1. Right, so hover your cursor over that and press I. Just wait for this to finish compositing. See our shockwave comes out. Frame 69. Camera changes direction, pulls back. Let's wait for that to composite. Make sure I've got all my keyframes right. Just waiting for this to finish composite. And your intro should look a lot like the one that we showed you at the beginning of this video. So let's go back into default view and play this. Jump back to frame 0 and play this. So now you made your own intro. And to turn this into a video, you want to render it, and then you're done. So once you've got your intro rendered, feel free to post a comment with a link to it below. We'd love to see what you've done with this tutorial. So thanks for watching, and as always, subscribe for more tutorials from partners in coordinated rendering of ideas, motion, and effects.